Trying out a new thing where OBS is recording the screen a bit closer so you get a better view of exactly what I'm working on instead of having all that clutter off screen. Anyway, we're looking at the stereo multiband limiter, which is kind of a tricky unit to use, I'm not going to lie. I have a drum loop going into this thing that will help us learn all about its various functions. Let's start by just initializing it, taking the ratio down to 1 to 1, threshold up at 0, attack and release as fast as they go. Let's get rid of this makeup gain, and then let's put our different bands back to 0. And also let's put our dry wet on wet. So we have an initialized multiband limiter. It shouldn't sound any different between being on and off. Yep, sounds pretty much exactly the same to me. Let's start by checking out the ratio and threshold. Now, what this is going to do is affect all three bands. This is the ratio and threshold for all three of them. And let's put the ratio at infinite to 1 and then bring it down. So what's going to happen with the settings like this is whenever anything reaches minus 40 dB, it's pretty much not going to ever get past that. So the sound might, go up to all the way to minus 6. I saw it on these meters at least. But the output should always be around minus 40. Again, the meters in the UAD are different than the meters on the Kronos. I still don't exactly know why. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the internal headroom on the Kronos. But nonetheless, let's just listen to this. It should sound very quiet when it's on. Cool. So let's talk about the offset parameter. So what the offset parameters do is they offset the threshold for the particular bands. So if I go down to its maximum, it's minus 40, and the threshold goes down to minus 40. It's better to think of this as moving the threshold back up 40 dB all the way back to 0. And think about what that would be like for the whole sound. Right now, when it's at minus 40, we get a quiet sound. And then if we turn it up, we get the regular sound. Likewise, if it's at minus 40 and we put the offset at minus 40, this band will be loud. Let's give it a listen. We can kind of use that as a makeshift way to solo each band because there's no way to do it otherwise. Let's listen to the mid band. And the high band. So you can see the bands are actually conveniently sort of dividing the drum kit up in three different ways. We have our snare that's predominantly taking up the middle band, the kick for the low, and the shakers and things for the high end. While we're soloing each band, let's now put the offset back up, which is actually turning down our threshold for this for that particular band. And let's just kind of memorize the number. And in this way, we get to essentially listen to each band individually while we're setting the parameters. It'll make more sense as I start doing it. So right now we're listening to the low band. Now we're going to push the threshold down. I like it at minus 20. And then I'm going to put it back to 0 and just remember that I had it at minus 20. Now let's listen to this band by putting it all the way down, putting the offset all the way down, and then pushing the offset back up, which will push our threshold down. I like it at minus 15. So we had minus 20, minus 15, and let's listen to this last band. Oh, there we go. I like minus 12. And let's put this guy back to minus 15. And we had minus 20 on this guy. Cool. So now I have the level of compression that I'd like for each band. Let's adjust the gain, since undoubtedly we're going to have turned down the signal a bit. So it looks to be originally peaking right below minus 6. So 4 dB of makeup gain gives us that peak amplitude again. So we're actually boosting the RMS, but we're not boosting the peak amplitude. So let's see here. The last thing to cover at this point would be the dry wet. This unit has no lag, it has no latency, so we don't hear any artifacts when going from wet to dry. So we get to do parallel compression, which is really nice. We don't need to mess with the threshold anymore. I do want the ratio at infinite to 1 because I do like squishing the sound as much as possible since I'm going to parallel process it. And then I'm leaving the attack and release as fast as they go because I want to shave off the transients and then have the sound return to the fader. Again, you can always think of these compressors as like auto faders, and then have the fader level return to normal as fast as it can after shaving off the transient. That gives us the most sustain in the sound. That's just a general compression technique. This video is just about the multiband limiter. I'm not really going to get into compression techniques, but just know that these are the correct settings for my goal here, to squish the sound, and then I'll reintroduce the transients by messing with the dry wet parameter. So let me do that right now. And actually, let me, I'll put this, no, we'll just leave it where it's at. Okay. So for the wet sound, the dry sound, which is much less sustained. Now I find a parameter like this is actually much easier to set when I'm using a fader, so I'm going to quickly on the Kronos actually highlight that with the value knob and then mess with it that way. I think I like it there. Cool. So that's it for this tutorial on the multiband compressor. Again, it's kind of a tricky unit to use since you can't really solo each band. And it is kind of counterintuitive how the offset says minus. It really should say plus, in my opinion. But nonetheless, I hope this helped you out, and I'll see you in the next video, which will actually not be on any more dynamics processors. We covered all the dynamics processors in the Kronos, so we're on to a whole different category. I'll probably group all these videos together into a new playlist and then continue on from there. But thank you for watching. Take care.